At the Muslim Council of Britain, joining us live from Glasgow. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. We'll pick up in a moment more broadly on the issue of Islamophobia, but just in terms of the inquiry that has now been ordered into the allegations made by Nusrat Ghani, that inquiry by the Cabinet Office, is that enough?
I think the investigation is a start, but it's taken the last few hours to do what should have happened 2 years ago. And I think there's definitely wider concerns around the nature of institutional Islamophobia within the party, but also why wasn't it taken seriously then? Why are we able to investigate now? So I think there's definitely concerns around, are we just sweeping things under the carpet again? And how serious is this investigation? What are going to be the concrete steps that actually come from it?
I mean, the Prime Minister says it was taken seriously and that he did have a conversation with her in July 2020 to discuss the allegations. And at that point, he urged her to make a formal complaint to the Tory party. And he said it was her choice not to, and that the Conservative Party does not tolerate prejudice or discrimination of any kind. How do you respond to that?
I mean, I think there's been some great conversation on this, especially Baroness Saida Warsi, who said this was a governmental matter, not a party one. And, this concerned the government, and it required a different type of investigation. And Nusrat Ghani has been raising this issue again and wanted to keep it internally, but obviously things were not done. And it really took a media storm in the last 40 hours for the right conclusion to happen, and that this to be taken seriously, an investigation to be carried out, but also recognition, and we hope a much wider recognition that this is a systemic issue, that Nusrat Ghani's case is just one in a string of, and that we believe there is an endemic, systematic and institutional problem of Islamophobia within the party.
And we were just talking to Lord Sheikh, who said that he wants the definition of Islamophobia to be clearly defined and for this to be an issue that is looked at properly for the Conservative Party. You've previously called for an investigation led by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. Do you see them still having a role in how this is looked at for the party?
Absolutely. I think Caroline Knox also said the same. We need an independent inquiry. The Conservative Party did conduct an investigation with an appointed investigator from themselves, but the terms of reference were not wide enough. And our issue when we talk about institutional racism or Islamophobia isn't to say that everybody is a bigot or racist, but to say that when an institution has brought these kinds of issues, how do they address it? And from what we're seeing, it's not gone far enough or deep enough. And we have documented over 300 cases of Islamophobia within the party. We've got calls from Conservative and Muslim MPs, members, and many people forget Muslims also voted for the Conservative Party. So this is a bigger issue. And I think we need a politics that is really inclusive of everybody, and a process that is fair, independent, that can actually get us those concrete resolutions. And we absolutely also advocate for a definition, and we support the APPG British Muslims definition on Islamophobia in that regard.
And just going back to the inquiry, because Nusrat Ghani has said that she looks now eagerly to see what the terms of reference are for that inquiry. Lord Sheikh said that that's going to be very important. He wants to see everyone up to the Prime Minister questioned over this. What would you like the terms of reference to be, and what are your thoughts on the shape of that inquiry?
I think the worry always is when we take things to an inquiry and investigation, it becomes an overly bureaucratic process and we forget about it. And also that the terms of reference are not wide enough to really tackle some of the issues. If we consider the situation, Nusrat Ghani was in the cabinet, a very senior person, and the allegations are against another really very serious person. So it seems like this is not just an everyday issue. This is quite serious. And the notion of her Muslimness or her faith being a reason for her to be dismissed or sacked, these are all terribly important. So I think the terms of reference need to be broad enough, but also deep enough to consider the wider issues of how Muslims are perceived within the party. We've had comments from the Prime Minister himself around Muslim women and burqas and letterboxes, and there have been surveys to suggest that over 57% of Conservative MPs have very negative perceptions of Muslims and Islam. So I think it needs to be broad enough and wide enough to really understand that this isn't just a one-off, but also to actually tackle the issue that if you're a senior person in a senior position, you can still get discriminated on, so it doesn't make it acceptable at any level. And then fundamentally, why wasn't things done sooner?
Thank you very much for joining us, Zara Mohammed, Assistant Secretary General at the Muslim Council of Britain. Thank you. Some breaking news to bring you.